to the Grey Man Podcast. This retired counter-terrorism agent, lifelong martial artist, and personal defense expert joins his best friend, producer Jim, to talk about personal defense and world events. This is The Grey Man, Mike Syme.
Hey guys, welcome back to another week of The Grey Man. This is episode 22. I got it right. I actually asked before we started recording to ensure that I had the number right. I've learned that I got to start doing that. I can't count this.
We talked a little bit about the show, and I actually gave Mike a heads up about shitty choices this week. For those that were with us last week might remember, this one is all Mike's doing. So it's all about something you suggested last week when we get to that part of this show. But it's been a very unusual week for Mike and I. And there's been a lot of weird things that we both had in our lives, and we're just going to talk about those today. And this is an episode of Whiskey and Religion. It's been a while. Last time we had a fantastic guest with us when we did Whiskey and Religion, Bruce Pagano. That was a fantastic discussion. Definitely recommend, if you've not heard that show yet, to go back and do it. But today we're talking about a couple things specific to maybe more spiritual side or the religious side of how we cope with things. Mike's had a lot to cope with in his life. I'm dealing with some stuff right now, so we'll get into that. And I would like to. We're also coming up to Thanksgiving, so Mike, if you don't mind, I'll do our free ride. Yeah. So this actually hit me. We're recording on Sunday, the 22nd. If anybody's checking the calendar against when you might be listening to it. At this morning's church service that I attended virtually, which will become important when we get to our discussion later, I was at home attending the service, and our pastor talked about this. It's something that they've been doing for a while every year. It's called First Fruits Giving. Now, this isn't a specific charity that I'm aware of or anything as far as the free rides go. I think this is more of a concept, and the concept is this. We all know that coming up, Thanksgiving is Thanksgiving Day, however we celebrate that in these crazy times, right? But what happens the next day? It's Black Friday, which feels like it's been going on for 3 weeks already at least. But officially, Black Friday is this Friday when we go out and buy maybe some Christmas gifts, get some gadgets, get some good deals. And then it's Small Business Saturday, which is also it's a capitalist idea, which I support fully. And you go out and you maybe support local businesses on Saturday, however you can. And then, of course, comes Cyber Monday, which feels like has been going on for 3 months. But that's also coming up. A lot of ways to spend money on the commercialism of the holidays coming up. I feel not a bad thing. But what this does, First Fruits Giving, is a celebration this coming Wednesday then. So the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, or whenever you happen to hear this. Maybe it'll just give you a moment to pause and think about how we're giving of our monies. You know, the money that comes in, I feel personally it's all a gift. However, whatever talents I've been given, however I earn my money, that's a gift somehow that's been given to me, whether you consider that by a higher power, by God, by the universe, and even if it is from your own hard work. I'm not saying that you have to give it away. That's not my point at all. We'll deal with that enough in the next 4 years. But for right now, if you have some ideas on how you'd like to maybe give to a local charity, maybe to a grander charity, maybe to a church, however it is, First Fruits Giving, this idea that's starting to spread is just about taking some time before we spend money on things, on material things. How can we maybe help those around us? So First Fruits Giving is just our free ride for this week, just a concept to maybe help us pause as we get into the holiday spending season.
I think it is a fantastic idea. Thursday is a day of giving thanks, and what better way to give thanks for everything you have than to give back, right? Yeah. The older I get, the more important that becomes for me. I know this isn't quite the same, but Rochelle and I were actually just talking about this. One of the things that I like to do as a hobby is I like to cook. And a lot of people find it weird knowing me as a person and what my former job and what I do now for a living, plus, murder yoga and bare knuckle karate and that kind of stuff, that one of my absolute favorite hobbies is cooking. And I tell them it's because it's a way that I can give back, right? It's a way that I can feed friends. Really important for me to take care of friends and family. And it's a way that I can do that. And I can be creative at the same time. And I have a fat kid inside of me that likes to eat, so I like good food anyway. But the concept of giving back through your time and talents is a huge deal. We talk about it at The Pursuit all the time too. What are the the talents and the gifts that you've been given and use them. And some people have abilities that they can give. Some people have been blessed with finances, and that's how they give. Some people don't have abilities or finances, but they have time. And so whatever it is, give back and celebrate.
Yeah, first fruits giving, if you could. That's a great way to support that. So all right. Well, getting into what we're going to get into this week, my unusual week started with a little dog, and we're going to talk about loss. So buckle in a little bit. We're probably going to get a little bit real. I might cry through this because I'm still feeling a lot of pain. The first dog that my wife and I got was Rocky, and he's a Cairn Terrier. We got him about 11 and a half years ago, and this week he passed on. He had been kind of sick, and then he became sick. One of the things I learned through the last week is that particular breed of dog, it's like Toto from The Wizard of Oz, and Rocky was really dark, just a completely black version of what Toto was, but I've learned that they're very stoic dogs, and it makes sense. Through his life, I've known that he had some really playful things about him, but he was very staunch. Like he was, I always laugh. Mike referred to him as an old British gentleman because he had the big bushy eyebrows. Yeah, exactly.
Every time I saw him.
So and Rocky, he got sick. He was trembling, which he'd never done before. He wasn't eating, which he certainly hadn't not done before. And then in the end, he wasn't drinking much. And it just over a couple days, it set on. And we took him into the vet, and they did an exploratory surgery the next morning, and he didn't survive that. Matter of fact. And these are the tough things that we as pet owners and sometimes family members and companions have to deal with. We had to make a decision. There was no other decision than to have Rocky go to sleep and not come back out of the anesthesia. There wasn't an option for that. Not one that wouldn't have been very cruel anyway. So that was a tough call, and it's been difficult. And the thing that I'm finding really helpful through all of it is the outpouring of support. And this feels there on one hand, it hurts like hell. And I just want to cry my eyes out right now thinking about Rocky because I miss him. And I feel like there were things I could have helped his life have been, could have been better. Like we could have done things to make his life better. And did we fail him in any way? And did we miss something that led to this illness that led to his death? And all of these questions I know that people face, and so that said, I also know it's a dog, right? It's a pet. It's not someone that comes from my blood. It's not someone that is a person. It's a dog. And I know that there's a mindset of dogs are dogs, animals are animals, and we're people. Why are you even giving anything to this animal, much less as much emotion as I have? This is the second dog that we've had to make that decision about. The other one was actually more difficult. Sammy was sick, and she may have been recoverable, but she had so many health issues. It wasn't a decision that was just made for us. We had to make a conscious decision about it. So we've been through this, my wife and I, and we're going through it again, and it is hard. And I also want to recognize that it's not like losing a parent or a child or a friend or, Mike, I know that you've faced loss at a different level also. On the battlefield, you've faced loss in family also. So I don't want to minimize any of that in what I'm talking about. I'm bringing it here because we're talking whiskey and religion, and loss is something that we all have to face at some point. Mm-hmm. And however you get there and wherever you're at in it and whatever it is that you've lost, I feel it's an important discussion to be had, because if we don't face it, if we don't deal with it, if we just bury it, it comes out in some way. And I've certainly been there before. So my way in dealing with it, I joke about this on my radio show a lot, and I've talked about it here some too, that this is my therapy. This is my chance to talk about things. So, you want to come along for the ride, that's great. I appreciate it. I appreciate Mike giving me the platform here to talk a little bit about Rocky and the pain that we might go through with that. Pets are part of our family. I do believe that is for us. It doesn't have to be for everybody. And it's a little bit lonely. Our other two dogs now are still a little confused and very cuddly. And when we walk by a spot and they want to pee or they want to smell and pee in a place that Rocky was just a week ago, it still makes me pause, and we might spend a little bit more time there than I would have let him in the past. So that's where that's all at. And, my God is one that is directly involved in death. That's a very integral part of our faith. It began with the first deaths back in the Old Testament through the resurrection with Jesus, and the promise that one day death will be dead, that we won't have to face that anymore. And that gives me some hope. And interestingly enough, we're on a path discussing sorrow in our messages at church right now. So I heard this morning that that's part of what our future is, that we're not going to have to face that. And I also heard a very real thing, that it's not very comforting for us to hear. It's part of God's plan. It sucks. And I feel that that's an important thing too. Like there isn't an omniscient being, in my perspective anyway, that just sits up there and tries to punish us. And we're here where we're at because of the falling a long time ago, something that we couldn't have affected and have nothing to do with at this point, but we're part of it. And we just have the hope that one day this all goes away. So sometimes life is painful, and then we move on. And like I said, I just appreciate everybody being here. Some friends that reached out that were giving us some moments of comfort and some smiles from Rocky's life. So that's where that's at. And I know, like I said, Mike, you've had loss in your life. You've dealt with things, far more difficult than a dog or even a family member. In some situations, you've dealt with the loss of a transgendered dude in a tree down in South Dakota. There's some loss there of innocence, maybe.
Yeah, probably more of innocence than anything else. But life is finite, though, and I never, not using absolutes, I don't anymore categorize levels of grief and loss. I used to when I was younger, especially early on in my life, my former life, when I was in combat a lot. There was this term called fobbits, and people, they're hobbits that live on the FOB, the forward operating base, people that never leave the base at all. And, and they'd like to take their warrior pictures out in front of something, but they don't really leave. And I used to make fun of them quite a bit. And it used to really piss me off when they would come back and they would tell air quote war stories. I used to get livid about that. But one of the things, time is the great equalizer, right? For all things. And humor is just tragedy with time. A lot of things are not funny in the moment, but watching a dude swing from a tree when he's in fishnet stockings, it's funny 30 years later, 20 years later, right? But their experience was very much their experience through the lens at which they have lived their life. I have lived a life where I have been exposed to loss and danger and abuse and things like throughout my entire life. So for me, that lens was different. The catalyst which tips me was much higher, much higher than them. And so their way of dealing with grief or depression or, stress, that kind of stuff is different than mine. So I guess what I'm trying to say is our grief is different but the same because we're human beings, right? The way we express that might be a little different, but what we're trying to express, honestly, the feelings, the thoughts, the loss, all of that is the same. It doesn't matter. And our pets, we have two. We have Sadie and we have Skull. Sadie is a teenager now, and Skull is turning 2 or turned 2 this year. It'll be 3 in the spring. I think. Yeah. I think March will be 3. Right. Yeah. Geez, man, I don't math well in public, everyone. And considering my new educational path, that's kind of scary. But
well, we can measure programs. I think that's important.
Yeah, that's all we need. That's all we need. They are very much an integral part of our family. They're still our pets. Well, I don't treat them. They're not my fur children. I don't ever use that term. I know some people do. They're not my fur babies. They're not my children. They're my pets. But we love them. And they are sentient, living beings that feel things. So we take care of them. And as human beings, we have a tendency to project our thoughts and feelings and desires onto other objects to include, most importantly, pets. We do that. The way we think dogs think is a projection of the way we want them to think, not the way the dogs actually look at the world. But that colors how we interact with them, the love we feel for them. And dogs are the best pets anyway. I mean, cats are the spawn of Satan. So let's just put that out there real quick. They're the only domesticated animal that will begin to eat you if you're dead. They'll begin to eat you within 24 hours. It's a whole nother podcast. I can tell you how I know that. But dogs will wait. Dogs are super loyal and they're loving, and there really, honestly, is no other loyalty out there like a dog's to their owner. I mean, if you treat them right and you're affectionate and you love them and you take care of them, there's no other pure form of loyalty like a dog's. And so that makes it even harder to lose them, because they're companions. We're going to lose Sadie one of these days, and it's going to be really, really tough for me. And I have, like we talked about, I have lost friends in combat. I have not just family, but I've been present for loss in combat, and that I still struggle with. But that doesn't diminish the anguish and the loss I'm going to feel for Sadie. She's been a great pet. I mean, she's fantastic, very loving, a little neurotic these days, but very loving. So it's okay. It's the same. It's just grief is relative, I guess. Yeah. At the end of the day, in my opinion, at this point in my life, pushing 50, to me, grief is relative. That's an older, hopefully wiser Mike talking. If you asked Mike 20 years ago, the war on terror started almost 20 years ago. So that guy, we looked at it very differently, had a very different opinion of people and the way they expressed grief and loss. Yeah.
And everyone just feels it differently as you go through life, right? Like, so I lost my dad when I was just a very young man. I had just started a family. I didn't know me. I didn't know where I was going in life, what I had intended to become. I had no real spiritual base, very much a lost young man, and losing my dad sucked. And I mourn him now much more than I did then, just as the years have progressed. And then losing a friend that was younger than I, that was a huge part of me meeting my wife, losing him just suddenly. All of these things, and they affect us as we go forward. Not to make it any easier, I think, but it's just different. Like, this is a part of my life now. Their life is a part of my life. Their memories are part of where I am now. And then also, when I think of the loss, I think of what isn't now. I didn't have a father as I was becoming a man. He was there to raise me. He was there to be part of that family structure. But I left home, and it wasn't more than a couple of years, and he was just gone. And I didn't have that chance to come back around to get to know him in that way. So all of that, I think, is just part of like my being now. And as people talk about, we carry those memories forward. Just heard a thing, I can't remember, it was a TV or a podcast I was listening to this week, that a person, it was The Boys on Amazon. Great show, by the way.
That is a fantastic show.
Yeah, it's very gory. Certainly, I mean, not for the weak of stomach. It's got very dark humor.
Yes.
A lot of superhero silliness, but also like shockingly gory, more so than Game of Thrones ever thought of.
Well, it's like superheroes that were in real life. What happens when you give a psychopath superhuman powers? Yeah,
and they talked. So they were talking about, a person remains alive until the last time a person speaks their name. Right. So they were talking about carrying forward the memory of someone. And I think that really is true as well. So that's all part of it. And where is God in all that? I believe that God is as pained as I am about the kind of loss that we have to feel. I don't think that there's an entity that's just trying to make us feel bad about it, that someday we're not going to have to face it the way we do. That's the hope that I have. I have nothing to base that on other than some words that I've read and some feelings that I have. So this is about as far from the gray man mindset as we can get, but it's part of how I deal with it. And I'm sad. I listened to Johnny Cash's Hurt a couple days ago, just so I could get some of it out of my system, and just some of that stuff. That's how we work through things. And Rocky's gone, and that sucks. That's where it's at today.
Well, part of being the gray man is learning to deal with that stuff. in a world where everything has to be put out there all the time and everybody has to know everything that you're feeling and dealing with, and your pain can be your pain, and that's okay. I mean, you might have a core group of people that deal with it, and I think there are two ways that we can get through loss. One is spirituality, the other is community, because we are designed for both, to want both. We really are. It's a smaller community that I share my grief and my struggle with, and it should be. Not everybody gets to know what I go through because they haven't earned that. They don't, and in my opinion, they don't deserve that.
Yeah.
And I'm a little more open the last probably 2 years about my struggle with PTSD. We've talked about this on a couple episodes than a lot of my other friends, but it took me a long time to get here. And the only reason I'm this open about it is because I know people are out there struggling too. But I don't put it out there on social media all the time. I'm not lamenting it while I'm out. I'm not walking around with a gray cloud. Sometimes you do have to fake it till you make it. That's part of being the gray man. What I'm dealing with is what I'm dealing with. And when I get home, I can open up about that and I can deal with it. But outside, I'm just another dude in a crowd, and that's okay. That's okay to be there because we still have to function, right? That's part of being a human being and being an adult and dealing with grief. I have to get over that and still function. One of the things that really still kind of confounds me is people that let grief absolutely destroy them completely and they can't do anything about it. Like they completely come apart. And I get that some people have never really dealt with grief before. And the farther you get into your life, the harder it may be to deal with a sudden loss or something, traumatic. But honestly, that one still kind of confounds me. How do you let that completely destroy you to the point where you're non-functional? And I say that knowing that I'm jaded, that I have had to deal with grief and literally get back up and keep fighting. So I get that I'm biased when I look at it.
Well, and I think it's all moments, and some moments are larger than others because I did have, so I can speak to that. I had a moment of inability to wrangle my grief.
But that's okay.
Because I had, and let me talk about expanding it. So I had to call Janita, my wife, and tell her that Rocky was not going to come out of surgery. I asked the doctor, the vet, there was a couple of vets working on him. I asked them, just hold on to him for a couple of minutes. I need to call my wife. And I had to let her know that Rocky was not going to wake up. We didn't have a choice. So I tried to make it through that conversation to be the strong man and to have that conversation, and I couldn't. I absolutely broke down. That was grief overwhelming me. Now, I had the conversation with the vet. I've had moments like that in the last few days, and I will have more of those moments. I understand, if I'm understanding your question or your thought, it's how does someone allow that to stretch out? How does it become so?
That's what I was going to say.
I would feel that that's the depression. Then that's a cycle or a spiral into a depression, and I understand that too. Now those two haven't met for me, but I feel like I'm capable of that as a not just a broken human, but someone that may have some things jacked up in the neurons up here. That if two of those paths were to intersect, I could become completely incapacitated. And I've been very fortunate to not have that. Now, when you say you're jaded because you've had to work through it, I don't know that that's the right term. I understand what you're saying because of the experiences you've had. You got to just bury that and move on. Now, box it up and there are people that just aren't capable of it, right?
Yeah. So, and that's what really surprises me. And like I said, this isn't me calling them weak. It's not me telling like, what the fuck, man? How come you can't get past this? Get on with your life. I don't understand that. What I'm saying is, as a human being, if we're talking about grief and grieving, and I don't understand that. I can 100%, and it's okay to break down. You have those moments. I have had those. I have sat on a floor in a wooden hut in a shitty, dusty country and literally bawled my eyes out.
Yeah.
And then got up, got my shit together, boxed all of that up, put it away, and went back to work because you have to. Not saying that that's a healthy way to deal with it either. Eventually, you do have to pull those boxes off the shelf and open them up. The longer they sit up there, the worse they are. But To let it completely and utterly control your life so that going forward you can't accomplish anything. That is foreign to me.
Yeah.
Not dealing with grief, not feeling
I hope
grief.
that you don't ever have to face it. I hope that our listeners never have to face it. And I'm very thankful. And I feel like it's a grace I've been given to not have to face it, because
This is just me being honest, you know?
Yeah. No, that makes good sense. And it's, so let's talk about the other thing. The reason that this is unusually difficult for me this week, Mike, you talked about spirituality and community being the things that can help with grief. Well, for reasons beyond my control, I am at home and not able to go into work. And Janita, my wife, has been working. She's a nurse and very busy, and she's been gone a lot. So it's me and the 2 dogs that are remaining that have been at home. I'm COVID-19 positive. I got that result the same day that Rocky was put down, about 3 hours later. And that's honestly, that wasn't even bad news at that point. It was just okay. A couple days after the test. Right? Now I know. Let's fucking buck up, and I'm home for a while. And I mean, it's all right. I'm an introvert. I like being at home. I've got things to do, and I can always, I've got plenty of hobbies to keep me busy. So that wasn't a big deal. But I mean, it would have been nice for 8 or 9 hour break at work in a call center, just punching the clock and doing things. So this to me feels, I'm going to put this in terms of religion again. This does feel like I was given, I can't even say it was a test. I was being prepared in recent weeks through a series of other situations to go through this. And I'm grateful for it. I hope that I'll be more grateful down the road, because it doesn't always feel good. But I know, looking back over 40 some years, that these moments of things not looking great and feeling really shitty end in something that I needed to prepare for. And whether that's coming soon or maybe something I can help another person with, that's the kind of stuff that those are the good boxes. Mike, you talk about having put stuff in the bad boxes. It's a good box. This hurts. And this is what it means for me to lose Rocky. And I had to do that alone. I'm going to put that in a box, and someday maybe I can unpack that for somebody else. And if it helps, then, maybe a lot of this was worth it. So I'm COVID-19 positive. Anybody else in the room?
Whoop, whoop. Yeah, the entire Cyan clan actually came up COVID positive. I am on, yesterday was my last day of quarantine for 10 days. Rochelle is quarantined for today because her symptoms started after mine. Hunter and our quarantine ended at midnight, but obviously because Rochelle's goes through the day, we're still going to be quarantined for today. And it's been tough for me too. I've been teleworking for my real job anyway for a while, post-surgery and COVID. They've got us teleworking as much as possible anyway. But to be forced to stay in the house for 10 days was tough, because I'm a guy that is integrally connected to a community here in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and martial arts. And all of that was gone. And we've had several coaches that have tested positive. So we shut down our entire Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu program over the last week. It's been kind of crazy. And one of the things, so for our family, we handled it really well. I should probably put that out there, right? As a guy who's got MS, it's an autoimmune disease. I still handled it really well. There's a lot of research out there. Nothing is conclusive. People don't lose your fucking minds. But there's a lot of research out there that shows you that the healthier you are, the cleaner your diet, the easier it is to handle COVID symptoms. There are some overarching underlying comorbidity factors that make it worse. And that is not Mike Cyan. That is the CDC and the World Health Organization, their own data that shows that the research that they put up. So we handled it really well. Rochelle lost her sense of taste and her smell. I got a really bad cold for like 3 days. It's pretty miserable. All I want to do is sleep all the time. But when I get the flu or the cold, that happens to me anyway. The way I recover is through rest, fluids and rest. And then it was fine. It was like an annoying stuffed up nose for a while, but I've been 100% for probably the last 3 or 4 days. I started working out again 3 days after my diagnosis. Actually, 3 days after the onset of symptoms, a day after I went in and got my test. So because I didn't get my results until 48 hours after my test. So I was working out the day after my test. And was it a little tougher? Yes, my lungs actually, I had bronchial restriction and there were some things going on, but I still worked out because I know that is a contributing factor to my overall health. And so One of the things that COVID did show me, though, is people are fucking crazy.
That wasn't COVID that caused that. That was your life.
God. People lose. Yeah, it's true. People have lost their minds over the fact that we are not freaking out about it. And here's the problem. Seriously, like we've lost contact with family members over this. They're doing, by the way, not mine. I love it when people unfriend me and block me and don't want to talk to me anymore because I refuse to bend.
Right. Something doesn't make sense. How did someone what did you do?
We'll get there, right?
All right.
We'll get there. So one of the things we've never said, I've never said this, Rochelle's never said this, and I don't believe this. I've never said that masks are not effective. I've never said that COVID doesn't exist and isn't highly communicable. I've never said that COVID doesn't kill people. None of those things have ever come out of my mouth. COVID is a real virus, obviously. It has killed real people, unfortunately. And masks have been shown effective to mitigate the spread. There's data that suggests that, whether you want to wear them or not. And I'm not a guy that likes to wear them. I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Wrestling in a mask is fucking retarded, but I've done it. I mean, it feels kind of weird because you're sweating on each other anyway. It doesn't really matter. But and physical distancing. The distance in between you and somebody else and your exposure to people, all that stuff. There's data behind that. I'm a data-driven guy. So there's data behind that. You can also find studies that show that masks are not really effective, but that doesn't mean they're not effective. They're not completely effective in eradicating it, right?
Right.
So you can go back and forth on this. So Rochelle announced on Facebook that we were COVID positive, and that we had to step away from the gym for a little bit, and that we were going to be quarantined for a while because we own a business, and we want our friends and family that routinely stop by to say hi to know you probably shouldn't swing by, and that we were doing fine, and that we were healthy, and we knew it was going to pass quickly, and that our lifestyle helps contribute to the fact that our symptoms are probably a little less strong. And there are family members that lost their fucking mind over that. That how could you say that? COVID is deadly and you can't prove that. And so what I did, and I did this because it was Rochelle's post, and I act very differently on other people's social media page than I do on my own because it's my own and I own it, so to speak, right? I was very nice and political about it. But what I said was, I put up CDC and World Health Organization data about how the comorbidity factors actually increase your risk of significant issues with COVID-19. And I said, this isn't Mike Science saying this. It's not because I own a gym or that I happen to be a little bit into health and healthy nutrition for a lot of reasons, to include the fact that I have MS, and that has made a huge deal in my MS, my nutrition and my physical fitness. And that's not Mike Science saying it either. That's actually my doctor saying that. But so I put up there, the current obesity rate in the U.S. is 48% as of 2019. It's actually over 50% this year. But as of 2018, 2019, it was 48% of Americans considered obese. And you know what some of the top contributing comorbidity factors for severe COVID-19 were? Obesity, severe obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease. Do you know what the number one killers for the obese are in the United States? High blood pressure, heart disease, and adult onset diabetes. And for the most part, and I even said this, for the most part, understanding that there are genetic factors for some people. For the most part, though, all of those are controllable. One of the other ones was cancer. That was a large comorbidity factor for, and COPD and emphysema for COVID-19. Both of those, for the vast part, are preventable too, actually, because the largest type of cancer in the U.S. deals directly with smoking. You give it to yourself. You can fucking control that with your hand-to-mouth habit and a cigarette. Just like COPD and emphysema, the largest contributing factor for both of those is smoking. And so this is what I was talking about. Outside of genetic predispositions, which we understand if you're data-driven and you like science, that those are things. The largest portion of comorbidity factors that are killing people with COVID-19 are controllable by the individual. Then that's not me saying it. That's the CDC and the World Health Organization saying that. But what I got in return was, it sounds like you're saying you're okay with people dying. And I literally was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Where did that come out? And it actually devolved into this. I don't care about people, that I'm cold-hearted, that I don't understand COVID. Well, you're right. I'm not a scientist, but I understand the data that's being put out there by government organizations. And you have to have, I know there's some people that don't buy into the data that's put out there. There's a lot of conspiracy theory out there as well. But for me, as a sane, rational human being that has to have a data-driven starting point, I have to put some type of validity in those organizations overall. Can I doubt some of the data? Can I doubt the methodologies? Yes, to a degree. But there has to be some mutually beneficial understanding between the individual and the organization that the data that they are providing has been vetted, that it's peer reviewed. And there are people that have a problem with peer reviews as well. And yes, there have been studies that have shown that you can jack with peer review. You can make up data, and peer reviewed organizations will approve it. But for the most part, that process works. That's why it's been around for so long. So the starting point has to be, for me, those institutions like the Mayo Clinic and Johns Hopkins and the CDC and the World Health Organization, people that do that research for a living, because I don't. And neither do the other people telling me that, arguing with me about it. You're not a fucking scientist. You're not doing the research. And if you do, then publish a paper and show me that I'm wrong. Show me that these not me, but these organizations are wrong. Do the work, right? And so it devolved into, because I brought up the fact that obesity is one of the largest comorbidity factors for COVID-19, that I'm fat shaming people, which I never did, although it's okay to call people fat, in my opinion. As a personal trainer, I've done it, for God's sake. I don't walk around telling people, "Hey, you're fat. You fat. Goddamn." I don't walk around doing that, right?
Not out loud anyway.
Yeah, sometimes in my head sometimes. But you have to be able to call out the comorbidity factors for it. I'm tired of cancel culture and this whole shaming culture and all of that stuff. I'm not. What I'm doing is presenting data that could fucking save you. So listen, if you are 100 pounds overweight and you can control it, pull your head out of your ass and stop being so egocentric and so whiny. Fucking fix it. And I get that there are emotional factors that go into it. At one point, I was 210 pounds. I'm 173 now. I've lost all of that weight and gotten healthy. Trust me, I understand psychological and emotional issues with obesity. I do. It's the reason I love fitness so much, to help people on that journey. But because I talk about it, doesn't mean I'm fat shaming you, and it doesn't mean that I want other people to die. And what I brought up was the fact that don't put words in my mouth. It was a very ad hominem response by this individual. And there were a couple ad hominem responses. Instead of discussing the data, they attacked the person, right? And that happens a lot. I'm telling you, on the extremities, to me, the far right and the far left, those two groups of people, when they can't discuss the data, they attack the person. And I don't like it on either side at all. These people were very far left that were arguing with me. But I'm data driven. Show me the data first. And so COVID-19 has become this divisive, you're with me or you're against me issue. And it's just like politics. If I don't believe what you believe, then obviously I must firmly support the other, which to me boggles my mind. I hate Biden and I hate Trump. I dislike both of them very much. I think they were the shittiest choices that we could have possibly been presented as American citizens, and that our political endeavor was an abject failure to American citizens in 2020 for the election. 100%. Abject failure. But because I did not vote for Biden does not mean that I love Trump. Perhaps I simply voted for the platform, and I hate the man. But at some point, I had to make a choice. But that was so divisive that I've had people tell me that because you didn't vote for Biden, you're a Trumpite, you're a Trump lover, you must hate people, you hate the homosexual community, the LGBT community, you hate immigrants, which I don't. My family got here through immigration. You morons. But and America was built on immigration. It's the reason we are the greatest, truest, freest country in the world. But we can have a whole nother podcast. Jesus.
I was going to call you back.
You guys are getting me unfiltered. So anyway, COVID-19 has become another one of these issues where if you're not with me, you're against me. And what I saw again was that we are losing the ability to be centrists in America. And I think that's where America is strong. I'm a center right guy. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a card-carrying Republican. I'm actually a registered independent. But I'm a center-right guy. I'm fiscally conservative. I have a very hawkish foreign policy, but I'm socially very liberal. And people who know me know that. I've got friends that are center-left guys, and they are a little more liberal in their fiscal policy than I would like, but we can meet in the middle because we're center. I don't understand the fringes, and COVID has become that. And the other thing that this showed me is that people have gotten real fucking comfortable being disrespectful on social media. And I'm the type of guy, and I said this, I'm the type of guy that likes to remind people of that in person.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee you won't say that shit to my face.
Yeah. So this is where I think I am a psychopath, because this is the thing. I listen to you, Mike, and I hear over time, I've heard those of you that are just listening just missed on almost spit take by Mike with some bourbon stuff. But I listened to you over the years talk about social media interactions and your thoughts and your declarations and how decisive or divisive they are, rather. Or they can be. And I think I just don't care enough about people to engage in the shit that you do. And here's what I think. So then, and I'm a thinker, right? Like I'm very Vulcan. I which is odd because I feel a lot. So maybe I'm a Romulan, but I'm a
half human,
I get
half
in
Vulcan,
my head and I go down all these different paths. And I think I don't want to engage with people like that. I know you do, and I'm grateful for it. Yeah. And I also firmly believe, and now this is a platform I'll get on top of. You absolutely have earned the right to be as fucking political and argumentative as anyone that I've known, because of not just your military service. That bought you a lot. You got a lot of credits there, but also your education. You've made the choice to become educated in a lot of this. Not everything. You're not the smartest guy about
I say that all the time. Yeah, I don't like being the smartest guy in the room. If I'm in that room, then I need to leave the room.
Which also makes you a smart guy, right? So there's all of these things packaged together. And then now let's turn the camera back to this guy that just looks at it and says, "Fuck, you're stupid." Like that's what goes in my head. You're stupid. Why do you think that? All right, fuck it. I'm going to go over here and talk to a guy that I do get along with. Like there's no reason that I have to talk to a friend, a family member, a stranger, and I don't engage in it because, and that's where I'm thinking maybe I'm the psychopath. Like maybe I do need to be more engaged in the social side of what's happening around me. I just don't feel compelled to.
I think people should be a little more engaged in these issues. And I think that's how we got the candidates that we did this election, is people just choose not to be engaged, right? But it's part of my personality. I have a postgraduate degree in international security studies, poli-sci. I have a graduate degree in U.S. history. I mean, I went out of my way, like you said, to get those. I've worked at the state and national level with foreign governments overseas. So I really enjoy that stuff, and I love the discussions. And I have these discussions because there are times that I learn things. I go, oh, shit, I never looked at it that way. I just actually, a buddy of mine that I served with when I was on the team, he's a combat rescue officer now up in Alaska. I won't use his name. Super smart guy. I mean, one of the smartest guys I know. He is on the left, center leftish, and I'm center rightish, and we don't talk a lot. We used to, but he's got a lot on his plate now with his job and how high he up is in the rank structure and that kind of stuff. But I just sent him a note. He was on after this discussion. He was on my this last discussion I was talking about, he was on my heart. And I said, hey, man, I just want to thank you for being a guidepost for me. There are very few men in my life that I consider as a guidepost for me for one reason or the other. And you're definitely one of them. We don't talk a lot, but I appreciate your insight and I appreciate who you are. And so
that's interesting. And I think expanding on that, I have just a very few of those.
Yep.
Whereas it seems you have, like, you've broadened your field of guideposts.
I do.
And
as I get
absolutely
older.
a positive thing. I don't geek out on it's conflict for me. I am naturally absolutely averse to any kind of conflict. I do everything in my power to avoid or resolve conflict naturally. Now, I've worked really hard in the last couple decades to fix that. I feel that that's a dysfunction of mine. I want to get better at conflict. So I work, I can't say daily because there are days I just say fuck it and everything is just fine. But there are days that I want to be better at conflict. And I think that gets a little bit more to the core of my psychopathy, is that I just want everybody to be happy, not just with me, but just in general. Whereas your approach is 180 degrees from that in some situations.
It is.
Not always.
It goes back to that personality trait we talked about couple episodes ago, that to me, comfort is slow death. So I choose change.
Yeah.
I want to learn. I am an academic whore. I can't seem to not go back to school and learn things and always expand my knowledge. I'm always been fascinated with the Renaissance man, the person that could do all things. You know, they were well read. They could build a home. They could fix a car. They could go out and hunt for their own meal. They could stand the wall. They're all that concept is really important to me, and I think it speaks to who I try to be. But that's why I expand my mentor base. There's not a ton of them. I probably have less than a dozen people that I would go out to and say that we're in that bailiwick, but he was definitely one of them. And it was funny because about a day later he came back and he said his message basically, I appreciate you doing this. You know, there are times that I doubt myself and where I'm going and what I do, but I guess the force told you I just needed to hear this. So, I mean, we all do that, but we don't see eye to eye in a lot of things, and I'm okay with that. Again, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong fucking room. But this conversation I had about COVID showed me that these people that were so visceral towards me and a couple other people in the conversation believed that they were the smartest people in the room, obviously. And that because I chose to bring up comorbidity issues as a very large contributing factor to how people deal with or recover from COVID-19, then I literally, they said, I'm okay with people. I must be okay with people dying. This whole idea of you're either with us or against us is the issue, right?
That's part of it. Its core. That's part of it. Now, I would like to expand on this, though. Again, I've known you for some time, and your approach over time to these conversations, the conflict. So imagine if these other folks don't like conflict, but they have enough gumption to engage, right? So there's there's a fine line, or there's some line in there. If your credit is built up on the side of purely data driven, and it feels cold to these other individuals, to these folks that are saying, screw you, you don't care about people. They're not just engaging or fighting against the data. They're also fighting against Mike is just an egocentric asshole.
Yeah, it's called an ad hominem argument.
Right.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying it's right.
fallacy.
I'm just trying to get trying to fix the conflict. That's my job. So they're just coming at you saying, get off your fucking high horse, you data-driven piece of shit, and just feel for these people that are dying. And I'm not saying that's what they're doing, but if I was on that side of the horse, that's what I would be saying.
And here's the issue. At no point was it ever put that way by me or a couple other people in the conversation. It's literally their inadequacies driving conversation. And for me, and you know this, I don't give a fuck. I don't care what adequacies you are bringing to this conversation. I am facts over feeling every single day. Every single day. And it doesn't mean that I don't feel.
I'm not.
And it doesn't mean that I don't feel. It doesn't mean that I don't connect with people. And it doesn't mean that community and individual connection doesn't matter. I literally coach people for a living. I love that about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and the connection in the community and how we change lives through Jiu-Jitsu. One of the single greatest avenues of change personally and professionally that I have seen in people is through Jiu-Jitsu and fitness and nutrition. It's, I got my sports nutrition certification for personal reasons because of MS, but I've used that to help other people change their lives because I want to see that change in them. What kills me is that people rail against somebody that gives data and tell them how unfeeling and egocentric they are, when the fact that you're calling me that and you're saying these things shows how egocentric you truly are, because you won't take a moment to even look at it. All you're wrapped up is in feeling, and nobody can be as important, in the opinion can't be as important as yours. That's what it comes across as, right? And all I'm asking is, here are the issues, here's the data, let's discuss it. That was it. Well, and then nobody wants to.
Then I would hope that person has the guidepost in their life that can point them in the right direction.
You would hope.
You're not that guy.
No, but what happens is then what happened in this instant is that it devolved into I was just cold and unfeeling and I wanted people to die, and how dare us? Hey, I must have had a good idea.
You just had a revelation. All right, we're making progress here.
I obviously don't understand COVID, and I should use my platform as a gym owner to help people. Like, who the fuck do you think you're talking to? What do you think we do for a living? We're about change. Our motto at the gym is we rise by lifting others. That is everything about what we do, and we're centered around it. That's why we're not a global gym. That's why we're a local business that knows all of our members and all of their struggles and everything. And what we're saying is that your personal health matters with COVID. So we are using our platform to help people. How about you get off your fat ass, put down the Twinkie, and do some jumping jacks to help you?
We're back to your approach thing again. It's fine. You're good.
Of course, I say that kind of stuff on the podcast. I don't say that when it's in connection with the gym.
Yeah, we're not sponsored today by any particular fitness center in Minot, North Dakota.
So, but that's the problem, though. It goes back to my original argument that people have lost the ability to be respectful and logically, critically thinking. And that the social media has made people okay with being disrespectful instead of having a debate, like a real debate. Because I was in debate in high school, a speech and debate. I loved it. Surprise to everybody listening, right?
That's what you do.
I was a master debater.
I love being the guy to collect the data so you can go out and debate it. So we're good. I got this.
So, but a team needs that. So. I want those discussions, but what I won't tolerate in any way, shape, or form is that amount of disrespect. And what I believe is the farther we move away from a warrior society, the farther we move away from the crucible of freedom which forms us as a society, the more disrespectful and lackadaisical a society becomes. The last major change. The last major change, I think, for us was World War II, where we've talked about this before, too, where everybody felt that at their dinner table every single night, whether you had somebody overseas fighting or not. It hit everybody. And so everybody had to pull on the same branch of the tree. We had to be nationalistic. We had to be patriotic. Everybody pulled in the same tree. And the farther we move away from that, the worse society gets, in my opinion. And 9/11 wasn't that way for us. 9/11 was great for like 12 months, right? And then everybody went back. Yeah. It didn't hit you at the dinner table, because honestly, about 1% of the population serves on active duty. About 3% of the American population total has worn the uniform, active duty, guard, reserve. 3%. That's why when people pander to the military in politics, it really doesn't make much. In my poli-sci brain, it doesn't make much sense, because we're such a small percentage of the voting population. 3%, right? I appreciate it as a vet, but it's such a small percentage. So in World War II, it was much, much, much larger side of the percentage, right? And we have very few people in Congress that have served. Our last couple of presidents have not served. And I have personal feelings on whether that matters. Obviously, I'm sure most listeners can figure out where I sit on that.
It's another podcast. Yeah.
But the farther we move away from that crucible of freedom, the more lackadaisical society becomes, and the more people are comfortable with being disrespectful. Again, in the 50s, you say something about my wife, I punch you in the face, bah, knock you down. Perfectly justified in doing that. Dudes would be like, high five. Fuck that guy. Bam. Right? I do that today. Same scenario. You say something extremely visceral against my wife. I knock you down. I'm the bad guy. I don't. And so, and I'm not, I don't fit into that society, right? There's a very clear line for me.
Right. But there's other changes that have happened for the better though, at the same time.
I mean, like I said, when we talked about this before, you take out racism out of the equation for, post World War II, that kind of stuff. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I'm not saying that
what I was getting towards, but
society, yes. I'm not saying society was perfect then. I'm talking about the crucible of freedom. People were, for the most part, respectful. You didn't get to be rude like that, right? You could have a civil discussion with somebody without them calling you the devil incarnate. And so social media has made that exponentially worse, in my opinion. And so it just goes back to my personality. I'm the guy that when I see you in person, I'm going to remind you, hey fucker, remember that time? Remember what you just said yesterday? I'm going to remind you in public. And then one of two things is going to happen. You're going to apologize, and you better fucking apologize. Or two, we're going to have a physical issue. Because
excessive.
I don't allow that type of disrespect personally or towards my family. I don't.
Well,
that is a very hard line for me. You disagree with me online? Dude, whatever. I like the discussion. I like the conversations. I may learn something. The minute you get disrespectful and cross that line, and it was extremely disrespectful, now we have an issue. And I am going to solve it. And you can be a part of that part of solving it, or you can't. But I am going to address it. Because for me, not everybody's like this, but I am okay with that in my life. I am okay with having very hard lines as a man. Very hard lines that are non-negotiable. And I think you should have those. The old adage, you stand for something or you kneel for everything. I have very, very, very hard lines that I do not allow to be crossed, because that is who I am as a man, as a husband, as a father, as a voting member, and as an American. There are very hard lines. And that's how I live my life. I think part of the problem in society is that we don't have people that will make those stands. We don't have people that will believe that everything is okay. It's that old adage, again, goes back to, if I don't believe what you believe, then I automatically have to believe the other. But nobody wants to see the in-between. There are a ton of things that I can stand for in the meantime, especially as a center-right guy. Again, I like a very conservative fiscal policy. I'm a huge fan of that. I like a very strong military, although I don't think we should be involved in everything. But when the dog needs to be smacked in his backyard, I think we should go there and smack the shit out of him in his backyard. But I'm also very socially liberal. I believe in same-sex marriage. I'm a huge proponent of that. There are some other issues we could get into that I divulge in from there that people are like, well, then you must be homophobic. No, I'm not. But, so anyway, yeah. So
like I was saying, I've got COVID-19 and I'm a fat fuck. So
yeah, I'm just telling people, don't be an asshole. Just because somebody wants to bring up comorbidity issues that could help people, and you have a psychological aversion to talking about those, doesn't make it everybody's fucking problem. How about you understand that that is your individual problem and you deal with that?
Or not,
but just keep your fucking mouth shut then.
Yeah. Well, or just don't bring it to you. This is the part that I don't get. So I'm going to expand on what I talked about earlier. I wonder about your engagement, Mike, with others. Like, and so you've covered it well. I do still wonder, but I get it more. But the other side to that though is what are people getting out of it? And that's one of my core things. It drives me nuts.
It's egocentric.
It drives me nuts that Dr. Phil took that on. Like, that's his thing. Well, what are you getting out of it? I've thought that for years before he became a puppet. Why do you do that? And I've asked you, Mike, I've asked you that question numerous times.
Yep.
I would ask the other side of it too. Like, why are you, what is it? If it's purely emotionally driven, that's not a positive emotion to feel so shitty about this jackass on his high horse talking about COVID-19 going to kill all these people, even if that's what I think, whether it's you or anybody else in my life, my thought is, well, that sucks for you. And I'm going to feel sorry for you. Like, if that's really what I thought, Mike, that you didn't care about people dying from COVID. It's you. So you and I would have a conversation.
Yeah, we would have, we'd have a conversation. Exactly.
If it's in a further out circle in my life, somebody that I think, man, I really hope that they can get some help, whether it's from a family or a friend or professional help, whatever it is, like, that hurts. That's a hurtful way to live. If that's really what you feel, if that's really what goes on in your brain. So that's where I just disengage. Like, I've got enough of my own shit to deal with. I'm not going to take yours on. I consider that shit.
There's tons of times I see this, obviously, with the circle that I have on social media too. I see these things all the time, and I rarely engage. I just let it go, because you can tell based on the statement made that they're not looking for data-driven discussions. So at the end of the day, here's my issue with all of that conversation. You cannot deny that obesity is an epidemic in America. You cannot. If you do, you can. Logically, you cannot. But you could. But it would be a fallacy. It would be an emotional and psychological fallacy on your part. The data supports that there is an epidemic of obesity, quickly becoming worse by the day, and it's spreading to other countries, so it could become pandemic, because that's what a pandemic is: 2 or more countries doing the same thing, right? But it is an epidemic in America. From early, we're talking 2-3-year-olds up. It is an epidemic in this, and it is killing Americans by the thousands every year. Plus the comorbidity issues that go along with obesity are killing tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Americans every single year. And you know what we do about it? Fucking nothing. Nothing. What we do, the only thing that we will do, though, is when somebody brings it up, you attack that person and tell them that they're fat shaming somebody and how dare you, and that you're cold and unfeeling. Or how about, as a guy who has been a personal trainer for a decade and a half, who has overcome a mild obesity, which was like I was 40 pounds heavier than I am right now, none of it muscle, who makes it a point to get people healthier through physical fitness, whether it's martial arts or personal training or nutrition, because I'm certified in that. How about you understand that that's why I bring up this issue, that it is a hot button and it's emotional for me, and I want people to be able to conquer something that they control, understanding that there are emotional issues tied to obesity. There was for me. I ate my feelings away. I still sometimes just want to eat my feelings away. Fat Mike is in here somewhere still, and he pokes his head out, especially when I'm not feeling well. Rochelle actually brought that up when I was like at the sickest with COVID. I was having my flu-like symptoms. Yeah, I kept saying, the things that I wanted, and all the things that I wanted were not healthy foods, and she's like, "You are just want to eat your feelings." I'm like, "Yeah, you're right, 100%. Yep. I want sweets when I'm not feeling well. I want fried chicken and fast food and that kind of stuff." And so I get it. He's in there. When I've had a stressful day, do I want to make a healthy meal? No. What I want is some damn fried chicken and nachos. But I make
meatloaf, mashed taters, yes sir.
Gravy smothering everything, right? But I make a healthy meal because I've built that healthy habit, and we've talked about discipline and all that stuff before. But I understand all the emotional ties to it. That doesn't mean I don't get to bring up obesity as a comorbidity factor or as an epidemic in America. That is the problem we're having. Nobody is allowed to talk about anything because it might make you feel bad, and so there's a cancel culture. Well, you know what I say to you? Fuck you, we're talking about it anyway, because it's the only way you move forward. The only way you move forward is identifying the issues and discussing them, finding solutions, and then implementing those solutions. That's the reason why the CDC has the comorbidity issues up on their website. That's why they put them up there, to identify them so that you can address them. So hopefully you can deal with it and not have to deal with, because we don't know everything about COVID-19. But we do have enough data to tell us that those are major issues that can cause you to die from it. Major issues?
Major
or
issues.
have significantly worse symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm bringing it back around. your vein is pulsating.
I don't understand. I really, somebody help me understand why it's okay to cancel that. Right. To cancel that. To cancel that discussion
Your Honor,
in that culture.
Your Honor, I call out that the witness made an absolute statement, and I'd like to address that.
Please do.
The only way to fix it is this. When I hear you say that, Mike, you're wrong. There's not just one way to say that, yes, there is data, and yes, we have to talk about it. Some of us do.
Well, you can't ignore it and make it better either, though. That's the problem. You can't.
That's true. You can't. And you just die off, and that's the end of your lineage. That's fine.
Well, yeah, at least I don't have to deal with you anymore, because then I can be the cold, unfeeling person that hopes people die. Well, fuck, just ignore it and die then. So but then think about the second, third order effects to your family.
Yeah. Well, and it's the absolutes that I have a problem with. So we're here's the thing. We've gone down from we have COVID to a lot of issues that you have in society, and I appreciate that. And we're going to have a lot more discussion about these come the next couple episodes, come next season. I do love this discussion, and here's me I'll be naked in this. My raw part of this is the only time that I feel really comfortable in this type of conversation is behind the microphone. That's something that I've worked on in my life, is to open up behind a microphone. And sometimes it's not like an actual tangible microphone. If I'm in a group of guys that I feel really trusting with, I can open up. But I've got this almost like a character, this character of who I am, of producer Jim. This character is one that takes the filters off, that feels a little more safe in having these conversations, and safe not from you, Mike, but from me, or not from our listeners, but from my own bullshit, because the criticism in my head is far harsher than anything anybody in social media or on the other side of the microphone can give me. And those are my demons. That's what I deal with. So, if your demons, Mike, are the people or the entities that are unable to focus on the data, then my demon is my questioning of my right, my ability, my data, right? My understanding of the data, to have that powerful of recourse, that I can come up and say, no, this is the way it is because this is what the data shows. I'm always going to question it. And that's why I struggle to be on the other side of that type of debate. I don't know that I'm right.
Well, I don't always know that I'm right either, but I like to have the debate, right? And it's not about questioning the data. I never have an issue with somebody questioning the data. What I have a problem with is you attacking the person and not the argument. That's the issue I have. That tells me, based on my former life, that tells me most of what I need to know about you as a person, are those instances. It really does.
Let's put a pin in that one. I want to talk about that in another show. So if we can bring this to, I don't know what we're going to put it under the title of, or the umbrella of, as far as our show subjects go, but the idea of, personality, it's probably going to come back.
It's a gray man skill for sure. Being able to recognize and psychological triggers and neurophysiological responses. That's a fantastic gray man skill set to have. So
we'll come back around to that one. We're going to have to move on with today's shitty choices, just to get us to the end here. I don't want to lose our our listeners, because you and I just want to keep talking. We can carry this on the next time. Listen, I appreciate your insights, Mike, and our listeners that engage with us, whether it's on Facebook, sharing our links out to other friends. We continue to grow this thing, which is, I consider this a blessing, because really it is something that helps me grow as an individual. It helps, Mike get messages out that might not otherwise be heard. And I think that is really important in today's fucked up society. So some good things are happening here, and thank you all for your support. And to say thanks to Mike, I want to come back around to last week when I announced shitty choices. You offhandedly said, yeah, it has something to do with duct tape, right? So Here we go. This week's shitty choices. I can't affect number 3, which is giggling like a schoolgirl whenever someone fires a weapon. So you may choose that one this time around. Or here's the other thing. Number 1, you wake up once a week randomly, sometime during every week, you wake up with duct tape across a sensitive part of your body. So it could be your taint. You wake up one morning, boom, there it is. You got it across your nipple, maybe your eyebrows, right? Maybe the back of your neck. Maybe it's on your bunghole or your schwetzel. Like you just wake up once a week. It might be a Tuesday. You wake up, bam. And, a caveat to this is you have to pull it off yourself. You can't get help.
Oh, okay. All right.
So, all right, you got that. Or daily. Again, just a random time every day for 2 minutes. Your hands will have the stickiness of duct tape.
Oh,
yeah. Nobody likes to be sticky.
No, I always feel like I missed something
Or you
fun.
feel like a schoolgirl whenever someone fires a weapon. So this may be. I almost thought about making you get a roll of duct tape and just like you could get out of it by duct taping your eyebrows off or something. But no, this one. So you've got once a week you've got duct tape somewhere, and I imagine taint was the first one that came to mind that would be difficult.
Oh, that would hurt.
But the other problem that sticky 2 minutes of. Imagine if you're like holding papers at the moment that it strikes, or you're typing, or you're taking a leak.
Just take a leak, boss. Just take a leak. Nothing to see here. Give me another couple minutes.
I'm gonna need some paint remover.
All right. Well, I can't have my hand.
What do you think?
My hand sticky. We are kind of the same person there. I don't do sticky. I don't like lotions. I don't like sticky things either. I always feel like if my hands are sticky, and I don't know why, I always feel like I missed something fun, and I can't remember what it was. So I can't do sticky, man. That's out.
All right,
completely out.
So we're down to giggling like a
3.
Girl when someone fires a weapon. Yeah, or you're gonna wake up, and it's so again. Now you may get this. This would be the worst. So if we're going Sunday through Saturday. Every morning you wake up wondering, and you get to Saturday and you wake up and it's been 7 months since the last time it was on your bunghole. So it's nice and ready and like it's not been well cultured for this kind of activity. And you wake up on that Saturday morning and there it is.
The backfield hasn't been manicured.
The stickiest duct tape, and it's not just duct tape. It's matched up in there. Like you're going to have to really work to get that out. Yeah.
Or I giggle like a schoolgirl anytime a firearm is discharged.
So this one, those 2 choices, it's down to just a quick, like one-time pain every week, or that ongoing, which eventually you and your students and your fellows on the firing range will eventually get over your giggling, but it's always going to happen.
If I keep any students,
well, I mean, you're going to have to reduce your prices.
I'm gonna have to go with some momentary pain every week.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I didn't think I'd get you with this one. Actually, it took a little longer than I expected.
Yeah, I thought about it though. This one made me think. Like losing an eyebrow. I'm not a handsome man to begin with, so making that visage a little worse is not going to help my cause. But yeah, I'm going to go with some momentary duct tape pain every week. I'm
going to recommend against that nipple piercing that you were thinking about, because ripping duct tape off with a nipple piercing is.
What am I supposed to do with the half of Prince Albert I already have?
Oh God! Well, put it in the can like everybody else.
You ruined it for me. Thanks.
Well, there you go. Now we can think about duct tape Mike for the next.
And you're welcome, podcast land.
So I'm going to hijack the end. Usually I turn it back over to you, Mike, for final words. I'm going to take it this time, if you don't mind, sir.
Go for it.
Because I just want to say, take some time with the people that you love, with the pets that you love, with your companions. Whether it's family, friends, or pets, maybe some extra scritches this week behind the ears. Go for that walk. Take a little bit extra time. We're in a weird time because we can't go give somebody a hug necessarily, but we can always reach out. There's video calls, there's just calling, there's texting. Sometimes that's what a relationship is. And we all think of that in these times when we lose someone, when we face our own mortality. We think about, I should have spent more time with somebody. I don't think about picking up too much poop or the times that Rocky chewed up our carpet and we had to replace it, or the times that, well, I do think of that. So I think of those times too, and in fondness, because that was him. That's who he was. And yeah. And we've all got those people in our lives, and we've got those pets in our lives. So don't waste time. We don't have a lot here. So please just give somebody some extra love this week from producer Jim, from host Mike, from the Gray Man podcast, and we'll keep doing this, and we'll keep getting better one week at a time.
Amen.
All right. Well, here's to episode 23 coming up next week. We'll figure out something to talk about once again. In the meantime, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
I'll talk
Cheers.
to you guys later. Cheers.
Find us on Facebook, YouTube, and your podcast app at The Gray Man Podcast. All rights reserved 2020. Skunk and Gator Creations.